Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a very warm welcome to the esteemed panelists and the moderator of this session. I now hand it over to you to take the session forward.
Thank you. Hello? Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'm yet to figure out which is the best time for a panel discussion in a conference, because after lunch is after lunch, before lunch everybody wants to go for lunch, and now it's just the morning and people are stuck in traffic, I guess. So thank you everybody for being here, and we are going to start right away, and small groups are good because we can have more intimate discussion towards the end. I'll keep enough time for you, promise. If you want to come to the front, then please come, it'll be better. I'm going to start with asking my fellow panelists to introduce themselves and in their introduction talk about their, their contribution to, because I'm very privileged to share the stage with them, to talk about their contribution and their work in this ecosystem that we are going to talk about. My purpose for today's discussion is to get some insights out of this conversation, which in particular our guest here can take back and help the ecosystem to progress further. So I'm going to start with you right at the end, and then come this way.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shashidhar. I run a company called Sabke, which is essentially involved in facilitating financial inclusion on behalf of balance sheet players like large banks and NBFCs. So the idea is to help large financial institutions to reach the last mile, and there are a lot of structural and regulatory constraints that makes it difficult for them to reach there. So we adopt the model called business correspondence, which is an Indian concept of allowing outsourcing of financial services to the hinterlands. So we offer both liability services through agent networks and also credit facilitation through a branch network that represents specific banks. We work with about 8 to 10 banks across multiple states. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good morning. I'm Shantanu Pense. I head the agri vertical of State Bank of India, and the loan book size as of now is almost around 2.87 trillion. That's the book size we have in SBI, with almost, more than 1 trillion farm loans, and hundreds and thousands of farmers connected to us across 22,500 branches. And we have 81,000 CSP points running as of now. We had a year back around 72, 73, which is now 81, and the target should be around 1 lakh. So even with 22,000 plus branches and 77,000, we have almost more than 1 lakh touch points in the country. And the kind of transactions going through the CSPs of SBI, last year was 3.3 trillion. Now, this year we are already at more than 2.8 in 7 months. So this whole ecosystem is actually working great. So I will add as we go along. Thank you.
It's always wonderful to have State Bank of India on stage, because you get immediately a sense of the size of what you're talking about and the scale. But it's also equally important to understand from people like Shashi and Nidhi on what's the experience on the ground, because, so Nidhi, let's hear it from you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Nidhi Kastiwal. I'm the managing director of a very small firm called Kamal FinCap. First and foremost, I must say that I'm so delighted and honored to be on this panel discussion with such great dignitaries. My firm called Kamal FinCap, based out of Kota, Rajasthan. It's a tier 3 city, so I'm wondering why I'm here. Because you usually see people from Mumbai and Delhi in these conferences, and I always feel like an outlier. We do financial inclusion in the space of microfinance for banks and various financial institutions as business correspondent. So we are a part of the BC network, but we work in a very different sphere of lending. So our main job is in the credit enhancement or credit facilitation facility for the unbanked. We work in 9 states and with a total borrower base of over 7.5 lakh women borrowers. So that's about me.
That is fantastic. You are in Kota because you're needed in Kota. So, and thank you for being there. Sir, I have to say before Dr. Prashant talks about it that he is really a doctor. And I will come back to you towards the end of the panel with a specific request from Shashi and Nidhi because you're a doctor. But for now, let's hear from you. What is the vision of the government on finance for everyone?
Good morning. I am Prashant Goyal. I am Joint Secretary in Department of Financial Services, looking after the financial inclusion landscape. Basically, we deal with, just to explain and set the context, 2-3 things we work on. Like one is providing the banking services in the entire country, like even up to rural areas, inaccessible border villages, tribal areas, whatever we can think of. Then accessing the persons, like opening of bank accounts, PMJDY. Yesterday it was talked about a lot. And then securing the unsecured by way of micro insurance schemes, micro pension schemes, Atal Pension Yojana, PMJJY, SPY. And even DBT transactions we are looking at. So this is the broader part of financial inclusion plus other schemes like Swanidhi scheme, PM Vishkarma scheme, those kind of things where we are reaching the marginalized sections. So the aim of the government is to provide banking services to all habitations and every nook and corner of the country. Initially, it was thought that banking is only branch banking. And banking outlet is a branch where like a typical office-like or bank-like branch. But later on, realizing the importance of the BC, although BC started very early, but in 2017, RBI said that banking outlet means a BC also, and a postal payment bank also. And that every geography, every habitation, means every village should have a banking outlet within 5 kilometers. So with that philosophy, we are working upon, like there are around 6 lakh villages in the country. So the number of the uncovered villages where within 5 kilometers, not even a BC is there. So that number is coming down. And right now we are having around 1300 odd habitation left, which we are proposing to cover by March. So a large part of this is covered by BCs. In fact, if we go by the numbers, in last 3 years only around 6 lakh plus fixed point BCs were provided in the villages. Sometimes we call it CSPs, sometimes we call it agents of the BCs, but these are like people who are working in the villages providing different kind of services. So that is the expectation of the government, that every village, every person, however small may be the habitation, so they should have a banking access point, now as defined as banking outlet by RBI within 5 kilometer reach.
And sir, you said we only have 1,300 to go, or 1,600 to go.
Around 1,300.
1,300 to go. So I want to ask the audience a question. How many people here know that of the 6 lakh habitations we have in this country, only 1,300 exist that do not have banking within 5 kilometers of their existence? How many people knew this statistic? Please raise your hand. No one did. Okay. So I want to set the tone for the next round of questions, but I'll start with a little bit of introduction of me as well. So I started my career with the Reserve Bank of India right here in Parliament Street way back in 1990. And so I've been a bank supervisor, and then I left and I've been I've been a consultant, I've been a CEO of a bank, I've been I've run consumer bank for Citi, so I've done different things, but largely in the space of mainstream finance. What prompted me to leave my job at Citi and start SALT 2 years ago was exactly this, this feeling that I come from Bihar and I have a home in Uttarakhand, and just seeing that so much ground has been covered over the last 30 years that I have had my career in financial services in the space of taking banking to people. And, you know, sometimes the same glass is half full and half empty. So when you see progress, you realize how much has been done. And when you see gaps, then you realize how much is left to be done. And that, I'm sure everybody in this room also feels equally strongly about the fact that that glass is still half empty. But what I'll do first is I'll focus on the half full glass, and I'm going to turn to my panelists and ask them very specifically to talk about 3 things that in their remarkable career of inclusion stands out for them from their learning from this idea that banking, like Dr. Prashant said, was not just about branches, but about, you know, freedom from branches. So can all 3 of you talk about 3 things that have come out of that 20 years or more of that experiment?
Sure. So my journey coincides with more or less how the financial inclusion evolved in the country. And what I learned in this period is, one is the alternate models, starting with how SHG and JLG lending has taken off in this country by not necessarily banks, but the non-bank entities, NGOs and NBFCs and MFIs. I think that has created a path to a lot of inclusion. Of course, now banks adopt that model a lot more happily than they used to earlier, but that was demonstrated by someone who did not have large balance sheets but wanted to try out and make it visible and make it clear that, you know, poor are not unbankable. So that aspect has been solved in a lot of ways. 6-7 crores of borrowers today borrow every day, pay 99% of the loans back, which is a very, very big success that we all should celebrate as an alternate banking model has demonstrated. The second very important learning that we have experienced ourselves is how the last mile banking disrupted model, which is business correspondent model, has actually taken off. And there are certain inflection points in terms of demonetization, COVID. These are the times when really people needed access to money, and that wouldn't have been possible the way that we were able to succeed if were these agents not been available in villages, servicing their own communities. I think we have come a long way and actually today serve a larger number of customers through an agent network than a branch network. And SBI is a classic example of how they leverage the agent network for every small transaction that comes their way. They even send out their customers out of their branches to go to the agents because branches cannot service those customers. So that is one other very, very important thing that we all should note, that how agent networks have really been very, very formidable in inclusion. The third important aspect, the whole digital revolution that we are seeing today has flattened the ground for all kinds of segments. Today, UPIs of the world, Aadhars of the world have really changed the name of financial inclusion in the way that transactions are no more, bank accounts are no more a big challenge. Now, the second level problem is to be solved. How do you utilize these services? How do we curate these services for those consumers? I think so we have actually passed that basic level of inclusion issue. I'm not saying everybody is included, but majority of them are today included thanks to the technological advancements that we have adopted. I think, again, that is a very big leap that we have taken as a country in embracing technology and taking that to the last mile. And every individual today are aware that there is something, that digital transaction that they can rely on. A very reliable network has been built. So I think these are the 3 large scale, tectonic shifts that have happened in the last decade or a decade and a half that we have seen. Yeah.
Sure. And we will pick up the entire theme of digital and future in the next round of questions. But my question to you, Shantanu, is what has been the learning in the last 2-3 decades, and what is solid? Like, what can we build upon?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I would say collective learnings. Several points which actually I wanted to, but We started all with SHG movement, and Al is here, fortunately. He is one of the key pillars of how the SHG got started. So thank you, Al, for being here. I am honored that you are here. And it started maybe 3 decades back. And now SHG itself is one of the world's largest microfinance ecosystem. Yeah. And it's all interwoven. It's not, BC cannot exist only for transactions.
Yes.
The SHGs, the JLG movement, interwoven with the transactions or the aspirations of the all people who form part of this country. Because most of the people of this country live in the rural semi-urban space, not in the cities. We can speak a lot sitting in New Delhi, but basically people for whom we are doing this actually are on the ground in the Russo area. That is where the BC network or the CSP networks works. Second thing, key learning was more and more digital, because we need to reach. So we have to have reach, maximum number of outlets, and then how do we actually make best use of this national asset? CSP or BC point is a national asset, howsoever commercial we may be. So making it digitally available to people and for all across the needs of life. We are not looking at only transactions. We are looking at their banking. We are looking at the credit. We are looking at now insurance. So whatever a life in city needs, the life in rural center also needs. So BC basically is an entire life cycle provider in the larger perspective. So technology, reach, and multiplying the asset which is there from a broader perspective. And as bankers, more and more services given to BC, I can tell you, unless we make the BC network or CSP network commercially viable and earning, we will not be able to sustain. So yesterday I was just counting, there are 24 streams of earning for a BC network or a CSP to be commercially viable. That's how it goes. I will add as we go along.
I really, no, so just, I'm going to ask you an add-on question right away, because I think Shashi started very importantly with where we've gotten, and you have connected it to the ecosystem. So you talk about collective learning, and you bring in a very important point about sustainability of the agent, because I think that's been something which for a long time we were not wanting to acknowledge, and now we want to acknowledge, right? And you wanted to add some point on the ecosystem. So if you have something else to add on the ecosystem, then maybe you want to add now, or what have we learned as an ecosystem? You said one very important thing that came out of our learning as an important ecosystem is this idea that BCs need to be sustainable, and it's a great, and the consumer needs a multiplicity of products.
Yes, because
just like you said ना, जैसे शहर में होता है वैसे गांव में भी होना चाहिए. तो ये बहुत सही बात है कि मैं सिटी बैंक की कंज्यूमर हूँ, तो मेरे लिए तो वो कुछ भी करने को तैयार है. मेरे लिए मैं हांगकांग में लैंड करूँगी तो गाड़ी भेजने को तैयार है. मैं किसी को फूल भेजना चाहती हूँ तो फूल भी चला जाएगा. पर जो जिसके लिए हमने BC नेटवर्क खोल के रखा हुआ है, उसके लिए हम कैसे सर्विसेज इकट्ठा कर सकते हैं, वो आप थोड़ा उस पर अगर और कुछ बोलना चाहते हैं.
बिल्कुल. इनफैक्ट कोरोना के टाइम में BC नेटवर्क ने जो काम किया है, शायद ही दुनिया में इसकी मिसाल है कि ये फिक्स पॉइंट ही नहीं. आई हैव सीन माय CSPs carrying laptops, going through the rivers, reaching out to the small hutments and giving money or collecting money. So that is something phenomenal which has happened in this country. And we have micro ATMs, which are again movable. They collect money, they give money. So everything is to be made available to the last mile. That is the ultimate aim of this kind of microsystem. So you cannot look at BC or CSP point only in isolation. There is a whole JLG ecosystem working. There is SHG ecosystem working. There is BC CSP, which is providing all the things. And digital backbone, Jam Trinity was the game changer for this country. Now, everything is available to the last mile. Even I was in Tripura just a couple of days back, and I have seen even in the villages, wherever the connectivity goes, everything is there. I mean, you don't feel like you're out of Mumbai or out of Delhi. That's the best thing which has happened. And CSPs are the distribution channel for the branches. Branches are comparatively high cost distribution channels, but CSP points or the BCs are the distribution channel for the bank. And it goes so well for the financial inclusion.
Wonderful. I think there are some really important points coming up there, and we will pick them up. Nidhi, do you want to bring the gender angle to this? Because I'm on the stage and you're on the stage, and we need to talk a little bit about this. Because I'm on the advisory committee of CGAP, which is a World Bank entity that works on sustainability and inclusion. And one of the things that came out in the Findex report last year is that even though India has made great strides in opening bank accounts, the actual active bank accounts for women is still not, some 30%. Yeah, it's a very small percentage of women who are actually using it. So I just want to throw a little bit of, gender into this.
I think what's happening on that space is the microfinance industry has really, really helped bridge that. Because microfinance essentially lends to women borrowers, and that's where we come in. So entire transaction is happening with women. We are empowering them. We are helping them to take the loans. They are the ones coming to the center meetings, repaying. So it is giving them an adding touch in the social fabric where they're saying. I will just share a little example. When we started microfinance way back in 2012 as a BC for Yes Bank, I went to a remote location, about 70 kilometers from Kota, and spoke to a group of women that we want to do this. And it was a virgin territory. There's no other banks operating there. And I spoke to a group of women, all clad, with parda, because Rajasthan is very patriarchal, and they had long ghungats. And I said, that we are going to give you this loan. And they said, "Aap hamara zameen le loge, kya lene wale ho?" I said, "Nahi, ye unsecured hai, and there's nothing that you have to pledge. And then they said, "Okay, we're going to bring our husband." I said, "No, I'm not going to talk to your husband. I'm going to talk to you, and this loan is going to come to you." And they were so bewildered, and then they said, "Angutha lagvaoge aap, kahan angutha lagana hai?" So it took me a lot of convincing to tell them that this is just for you. We are empowering you because you can do your small economic activity with this loan. So I think that's what is happening. The loans are enabling these women to come up on the economic scene, to show their participation in the GDP growth of the country in their own spaces, maybe not documented in a big way, but they are at the forefront of this.
Okay. What have been your learnings in that space? Of what do you think these women have, like you've been there for, you said 2012, right?
Yes.
So 11 years. So in the 11 years, how have you seen that change? What's the key learning?
So the key learnings, adding to whatever Sashi's mentioned, and what Shantanu spoke about the BC channels being sustainable, I think the key learning is that these women want to be included in all sense. You can't compartmentalize them. Like I am delivering JLG loans, but when I go to my field, they say, "Humko home loan de do, didi." Or somebody says, that my son has aspirations for education. Aap education loan dogi kya? So I don't have those tools. I don't have those products. So you don't compartmentalize the customer because she's at the bottom of the pyramid. Her needs are very similar, as Shantanu said, to a city customer, or she's a family person who has to look out for a family. So she has the same needs that any family member in a city or any other woman will have. Her husband wants a loan, her child wants a loan, she wants a loan for a house. So the bouquet of product is not available, and that is something that we need to work on to make the BC like a delivery channel for multiple products and not just compartmentalize them.
Lovely. How many people in this audience actually run a BC or an agent network or a CSP? Okay. 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 So we will come back to this point of ecosystem evolution and uniting the BC to deliver a more holistic experience to the consumer. Okay, that will be our last round, and we will want to get more questions from the audience on that as well. But sir, my question to you is, you've heard this, right? It sounds very simple. कि इतना कुछ हो गया तो ये भी हो जाएगा. But I want you to set that tone for what is the expectation that you have or that the government has from this ecosystem to deliver going forward?
The basic expectation of the government is very clear. It is on the similar line as expressed by the esteemed panelist. Is that number one, the BC is there, he is accessible, he's available. Like it is sure that if a person wants to go to a BC, he will be available. So there are working hours of the VC, there is a fixed point, and he is available from a particular time to like, it is said that he is available from 8 to 8. But minimum 4 to 5 hours in a day, he should be there so that people know that there is a certainty. They have to go to BC. If people are say like, if I go travel 2-3 kilometers, I don't find the BC. So that is the main point, first point. And then the range of activities. Although it is said that the BC provide different kind of services, but the actually on field it is seen that most of them are either providing cash withdrawal or cash transfer services, plus this passbook printing and those kind of things. So when we go to actual lending or meeting the credit needs of the community, very few VCs are there in the field who are doing the documentation. Maybe it is on part of bank also, like where they are not allowing the VCs to go for, I won't say credit decision, but sourcing, credit sourcing. So on the government part, we are like, now I think this is the main job that the BCs should be empowered. They should be able to judge the customer like what kind of customer he is. They should be taught and trained to do the basic, the paperwork, what kind of KYC documents are needed. Like if somebody wants to take a home loan and loan sourcing has to be done. So what is to be seen, like what kind of income proofs are needed. So in case BC is able to take all that documents and submit it to the branch manager, he may be 10-15 kilometers away, then it will be easier for the branch manager to take a decision without the customer visiting the branch. In case the documentation is incomplete, then the customer has to again go to the branch, which is cumbersome and there is no use. So in fact, we are working very closely with IBA and RBI, and we are devising kind of training modules for the BCs, depending upon their interest, like somebody who's keen to provide only the basic services or basic module, and somebody who's keen to provide all range of bouquet of services, then an advanced module can be there. So, but I think banks also need to be more proactive in this part, like all the services are available through the BC, and they should sensitize the BC and do the work for their capacity building.
Sir, that is absolutely what I wanted to hear. And I'm going to go back to Shashi to give us a specific example, because we were talking about it, on what actually prevents us from doing that. Because it sounds like common sense, right? And there are really smart people on the field, like you, who can train that BC. And I know that while the effort at training is appreciable, but I think they can do that. What actually prevents you from doing that?
Let me just take one step back. I honestly don't think it is being seen in a comprehensive perspective. I don't think that an agent is not able to deliver credit. That's not true. Let me put it in the right way. Because we are isolating a BC agent only to that person who is enabling a transaction. And we're not counting all the loan officers of MFIs that are moving around in this country, which are about 2 to 3 lakh of them. We're not counting them as agents. I think they are the ones who are delivering credit, and they're trained credit delivery agents. And we don't count them as BC agents because they're not BC, right? So I think we need to count all the distribution points that are out there. Every village that you have an agent, I can bet there is a loan officer in that village of some or the other MFI visiting every household. So it is not necessary that that agent has to be trained. There is another person who's already doing the job. And there is also an SHG, not one, there are many SHGs in the same village which are also facilitating credit in the same village, but we don't count them as potential agencies of financial services. So in my opinion, we very narrowly define the agency banking to an agent of a bank who is doing a transaction through an outlet. To me, that is a very narrow way of looking at it. We need to look at the whole agency network that is working for financial inclusion across various verticals. Now that extends to your point about what about other services? There may be non-financial services.
So Shashi, before we come to that, can we summarize that? Because I want him to take a few concrete things that we can act upon.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really concrete thing. If I had a notepad, I would have written it, which is to say that expand the definition. Is it correct
Right.
to summarize it to say that expand the definition of the BC or agent? Because today there seem to be too many different definitions or between what all of you are doing only. It seems like when we were introducing ourselves, it seemed like everybody is doing different things, but actually everybody is.
but
moving
one
towards
more
a
thing, there's one more agency network that is already very active is the insurance agents and advisors.
Yeah.
That are also independent agents.
let's
But again,
improve
we
that.
don't count them as their business correspondents in real sense. So I think we need to bring that whole comprehensiveness of what is happening and then
The
count all
definition
those
itself,
people.
who constitutes an agent?
Yeah, and
who
some of these
regulates it?
services are specialized. See, it's very difficult for you to expect an individual which is, who is a graduate sitting in some village to understand whole bouquet of financial services and try and offer them to villages. It will be mis-selling. I don't think even we understand the complexity of some of these products. Let it be specialized. Let a loan officer do loans. Let an agent be transaction. Let an insurance agents be an insurance agent. Some of them may do all three together who are smarter ones. But I would still think that all of that should be counted as potential agency network than simply counting one particular thing as agency.
So that's one point to take away. Then let's go to the other one. You were talking.
Yeah, so the other part is, there are other services which can be tagged along, with financial services, mostly services that can be offered online or that can be considered as connecting points. So we were talking in the morning about health services, right? Health is a very major gap that we have between rural and in urban India. And there are a lot of great health techs that are trying to bring sachetized health to the rural areas. But it's expensive. It is difficult to deliver through an exclusive network. Can we ride on the existing PC/financial services networks so that the same customer who anyway is borrowing from you or doing a transaction with you may have a health need, but they have to go somewhere else to get the same service? Can we try and see to open up the exclusivity part? I think there is a regulatory constraint here that one agent is supposed to work with only one bank and only one set of services. If you can look at it from a comprehensive point, if a bank or a service provider is not able to provide one service, can we tag along with another service provider with the same agent? Can we actually make agent a marketplace of services, which may not be competing with each other, but complementary marketing service, so online services can be offered to the same agent network, which makes the viability of the agent much more easy. And the same customer gets multiple services through one touch point. And that is another area where I think we should work a little bit.
And also that because the demand will be so variable at the grassroots level, it is very hard to create one template and take it everywhere. So I think, sir, this is the one that I was telling you that we will have a specific things for you because you are a medical doctor, and I'm sure you are aware of this constraint. And that's what we were just talking about. There's one gentleman in the audience, I hope he's in the audience, who is a health tech professional, and he was telling us about how hard it has been to leverage an existing infrastructure. And I can tell you as an ex-regulator that it is a regulatory constraint because there are restrictions around what a bank can or cannot do, etc. So that's the second point that I wanted to take away from this conversation, that how do you make them viable by not only, because financial services are complex and the same person cannot possibly be doing 3 financial services, but the same person can find it easy to do something which is more technology based or easy to sell. Is that something that, would you like to respond to that?
That's right, that there are regulatory issues in that, like because if a particular agent is working for 3 different banks or including NBFCs and MFIs, so it will create a moral hazard, like he on whose behalf he is doing what kind of business. And then there are interbank charges, like there have been cases that the same agent or somebody in his family, they are having this micro ATM of 2 or 3 banks. So if somebody is coming for depositing, so he is breaking up that amount into smaller pieces, smaller amounts, and then taking it in some other bank, so that the interbank charges are paid. So these regulations are made so as to prevent these kind of mispractices. So I'm not saying that all the agents are doing that.
Sure.
Plus, it again depends upon the capability and the technology available. And if someday some kind of health technology is available, which a non-medical professional is able to deliver, and the bank is promoting it and regulators allow it, maybe that day may also come.
Yeah.
But as on today, there are some regulatory restrictions within which we have to play.
I think they were talking about telemedicine, but we can come back to that. There was one more instance that you had, I think you had it, Nidhi, about if you are representing one bank for one particular activity, and that bank is not interested in doing, let's say, another activity, but another bank is, then why can it not be why can't that confusion not be?
I'll add to that. So,
Yeah, why don't you?
as a credit delivering BC, which works in the space of microfinance, what is happening up till now in the last 10, 12 years, we are seeing that we are getting a lot of opportunities by various banks and financial institutions to deliver credit, but it is in a box. So you are only doing a certain type of product. Sashi mentioned that maybe your feet on street is not equipped to handle multiple products, which may be the case, but we can build on. We can have a branch where you have different type of skill set, people holding different skill set, delivering different financial products in the same branch, brick and mortar structure. But what we are seeing is that we are bound by our agreements with the bank. I don't know whether that is a regulatory concern in so much way, or is it an independent agreement with one principal and the agent, where the principal tells you that you can't do beyond this activity that you've been onboarded as an agent for. So that restricts you. And
So you can't give home loans, for example?
unless the bank allows me and it gives me that product, I can't.
And if X bank doesn't give you that product, can you take it from Y bank and give it?
No, not with using the same set of branch network. So, we'll have to create another brick and mortar system, another set of... so that becomes a sustainability issue for the BC. So coming
So I have to
back
put
to that.
Shantanu on the spot to answer that.
And also, while we are on this, I would like to highlight, as an asset BC, there is an entire, there's a lot of ambiguity on the risk sharing between the BC and the principal. I would open that to the panel here. What kind of risk sharing the BC should be doing as an agent? Because, there is a little bit of paper on the RBI has talked about for fintechs that 5% FLDG is admissible. There is a lot of logics, Earlier, it used to be 10%, 12%. For some banks, that 5% becomes 100% because you keep paying 5% every quarter end. So what is that, that the regulator feels is all right for a BC? Because BC is an extension of the bank. So you're confirming to the policies of the bank, the credit is done by the bank. How much risk can the BC take?
Okay, so you have conflicting desires.
I
You
will
want,
come in. I will
yeah,
come in.
sir.
I will add to
Yes, yes.
what Dr. Goyal said. I'll just extrapolation. That the purpose of restricting a BC to a bank is because BC by itself is not providing anything. They are providing our brand. So when they provide our brand, they are our brand extension. So you cannot allow a single CSP point to work with 3 banks. This is because whenever some wrongdoing happens, and it will happen in financial space, there is a reputational risk for the bank also. So we are very, very vigilant with our CSP and BC network, with so many physical inspections, the transaction monitoring and so on. So a CSP point or a BC cannot act on behalf of 4 banks, otherwise it will give way to even malpractices as such. This is because banking is not selling or distribution. Banking is a business of trust. And we have built as bank, State Bank, a trust of 218 years. So, and all the PSBs, even in this space, are a business of trust. So only by virtue of having a CSP point, you cannot just give it all across. Secondly, as the Joint Secretary said, more and more banks, and even our bank is now allowing the BC or CSP points to distribute even the small asset products. However, the underwriting is at the back end. So we are not diluting in underwriting standards, but still making these small or micro asset product available at the BC points or the CSP points. That will make them viable. That will also allow us larger reach than what we have, so that ultimately what I said, that the life cycle fulfillment is equal in the rural as well as in the cities. You sell more cards in Russo area than in cities. That's the reality for last
Got
one
it.
decade.
Yeah.
So as simple as that.
Yeah. So, yeah, Shashi, I'll
Can add
come
a
to-
point.
Yeah.
I think fair point that there is this brand issue, but I think we should learn from some examples outside India. In Africa, now there is this new concept called shared agent model is being tried, and that's been talked about. I think in CGAP there are some studies also being made to understand how they shared agent model. So they create a common platform on the top, a middleware is created, and then the agent get access to multiple services offered by multiple service providers. And we need to look at how they are managing the customer protection aspects that and brand concerns that we're talking about. I don't think that should constrain a customer from accessing a service. I think that at the end of the day, if you put customer at the center of everything that we're doing, we need to resolve this problem. You know, we cannot say that it is not possible. We need to say, how do we address this concern of a bank representation or a customer protection while making sure that multiple services are offered to customers or citizens at the same time. The other point that I wanted to add is, you know, there is this aspect of, you know, agent being an independent body. You know, they're not necessarily an extension of any institution because they're not, they don't enjoy all the benefits of an employee of a bank, and we always try to say, hey, he's an agent, we don't give them all the benefits because they are independent, they're supposed to make their own money. Uber, Ola, for example, I know it's not financial services, but a driver may choose to, you know, accept a booking from Uber or Ola or Tomorrow Rapido or something. So, in my opinion, that person is free to choose who they want to work with based on the economic sense that makes for them for that particular ride. Of course, financial services is more sensitive, but I would rather look at financial services as a service, and if it is offered as a service and reduce the financial, you know, burden on the top of it, we can come and innovate to allow the agent to offer a service offered by SBI versus HDFC. Whatever he feels is remunerative for him, he offers that loan.
Yeah.
That
And I
is how
love
we
that.
should look at it.
And look at even Amazon or any other platform, right? All banks are there. But when it comes to the physical space, then we haven't been able to, I won't say that it's restrictive. I will say that we need to find a solution to how to do that without diluting the brand or the fraud concerns that are very
Actually, we are all
legitimate
evolving.
concerns.
I mean, even the banking ecosystem evolved, and we have niche players in every niche. I mean, at the top we have got the commercial banks and the private banks. In the middle, now we have SFBs, small finance bank also. We have got microfinance institutions. We also have got regional rural banks, cooperative banks. So it's a well-defined banking structure in the country serving to the niche customers. And this will eventually evolve as CSPs or BCs have also matured over the years. It's not that what they are doing today, they were doing 10 years back. The banks also evolve. So as the system evolves, there is one more channel which is very, very strong is direct distribution through internet. So maybe a fintech. So you never know that there is a complete disruption of this space because there is a platform called Jan Samarth. It is live on Jan Samarth. Jan Samarth is a platform where we have got 13 schemes. A person can actually log in and apply a loan. We started somewhere in 2017-18 with PSB loans in 59 minutes. That was the site where you used to do contactless lending platform in MSME. Now we have graduated to 13 schemes. And as we move along, we'll have more and more schemes. Similarly, RBI is working on RBI Innovation Hub. That's a platform of platforms. So this complete space of asset distribution may also be completely disrupted.
Got
So
it.
as we go along, we will see how the space
Got
evolves.
it. I want to get one wish list item from each one of you, sir, and I want to come to you for closing remarks. But I do want to take some questions as well. So which should we do first? Because I don't know what time we started and how much time do we have? Questions first. Meanwhile, you can think of your wish list item. I do want to get one from everyone. Okay, there's a question there. Can somebody take the mic? Can you please stand and ask your question so we can see you as well? Yeah, thank you. We can't hear you. And if you can keep it short and just ask a question, that will be appreciated.
So good morning to all of you, sir. Regarding discussion point on the BC sustainability and availability of BCs at grassroots level. My name is Bhaskar Chakravarti, GM from Canara Bank, overseeing FI wing, madam. As such, we are seeing some of the problems at grassroots level regarding BCs. Already those points have come for discussion among the panelists. This is undercutting of competition at a BC point level, at grassroots level, by some private fintech players are there, man. Because sir already told our Goyal sir regarding interchange fees. And the same BC person, one point of view is he can go to anywhere depending upon the competition. But same BC person is having two apps. One is bank recruited BC point, another is a private app. So he is cutting the transactions and accordingly playing. As such, as far as my knowledge is concerned, many of the banks are losing in the form of interchange fee. So second thing regarding AIP's transactions happening at a BC point level, sir, I want to bring it to your attention. Mostly there is one research paper from NPCI also, sir. NPCI also organized one meeting to arrest these AIP's transactions happening at BC point levels. There is some research. Mostly it is happening through private digital apps, wherein the fraudsters are cloning the biometric fingers and taking the money not from BC points of public sector banks, sir, but private players. Mostly, sir, 99%, that is the one thing. So in this process, NPCI has asked for some solution. We presented from Canara Bank, let us go for two-factor authentication. So one is biometric, second one is OTP based, sir. Still, we are yet to get details about clarification regarding that was, sir. I am putting before you, sir, to
Thank you
arrest
for
this,
bringing that up.
this
Yeah.
one, sir.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Coming to services, sir, we are also having root cities and R cities in Canara Bank. We are giving training every year to all BCs, sir, 2 to 3 days. Every year we are also giving training, latest development, everything. That can be thought of, sir. And other than financial transactions, citizen services can be linked to BC points at a grassroots level to make them sustainable, sir. This is what I feel, and my experience I am putting forth before you, sir.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. So 3 things I'll summarize quickly. BCs can do other citizen services, which is great. The second thing is, thank you for bringing up the AEPS point. So actually in AEPS, of 100 rupees, I think it's 3 paisa that is going into these type of fraud. So there's something actually needs to be done about it. The biometric cloning, when I heard about it for the first time, I thought somebody was just trying to tell a story, but it is true. So it is, though there are grave concerns, so I understand that. And I think there was another point. Did anybody? Leveraging infrastructure? Okay. Yeah, all very good points. Thank you. Anybody wants to respond to that, or should we take a couple more before that?
Hello.
Okay,
Hi.
please move the mic. Let's hear from the audience, and then you guys.
Hi, this is Saurabh Singh from Grameen Foundation. Actually, when we are talking about ecosystem services, but when because we work closely with the agent network, we figure out the current orientation of the agent network is more towards transaction-based rather than relationship manager approach, or we call it customer centricity. So what is your view? If you have to increase that ecosystem focus, should not we focusing more on agent capacity building and bringing that customer centricity as the core of the BC network?
Who wants to take that? I think that's a question you put. Any other questions? Okay, let's hear one more. Doctor.
Hi, Sumita from Indicus Foundation. Just 2 questions. One is that the BC agents were supposed to be getting a minimum remuneration monthly, and that information was coming up on the Jan Dhan website earlier. Is that still being monitored by the DFS? And second, is there an estimate of the number of women agents amongst the entire BC network?
Did you hear the second point? I couldn't.
The number of women agents on the BC network.
Okay, cool.
I need an estimate.
Thank you.
It's a very old one of 10% which is going around, but
So there's a question of customer centricity. There's a question on specific data on remuneration, and so who wants to take this?
Yeah, so I'll take the question about the ecosystem, how the agents should be trained and things. So very valid point that agents' capacity is critical, not only in terms of service provision, but also customer protection. More, I would emphasize on customer service, code of conduct, how they behave with customers and all. As far as the serviceability is concerned, we should be realistic that today we have about it's a number that anybody can argue against also, but we have 2 to 3 million agents on the ground. It's not fair to expect that all 2 to 3 million will offer 15 services each. That's not going to happen, right? There will be capacity constraints. There will be certain reasons why they cannot provide a certain service. So I think the selection, there should be a grading process. Agents, some agents which are in better markets, which are in better able to provide services, should be provided training so that they can offer multiple services vis-a-vis, where they want to be happy with a very basic transaction. That's okay. It's a choice of the agent also, right? And also market capabilities. So I think there has to be a grading system. Today there is no such thing as a grading system in the certification of agents. IIBF certification that we go through today is a standard examination for all the agents. There is work that is being done. BCFI, which I represent also, is working with bank, IBA and DFS to get into a grading system so that agents that are able and willing to offer multiple services should be trained for that. And agents that want to be restricted at a transaction level may require a very lighter certification. They don't need to go through the whole content and get disqualified for that. That is one part of it. Yeah. Hence, we need to get to the grading system and allow that to happen. Is what I think the work is already going on. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would add.
Yeah, sir.
As mentioned, we are already working on that basic module and advanced training module. The work is already on. And I think we are not very far away from that day when these modules are out and training will be given that way only. Coming to that fixed remuneration, although it's a mandate that all the BCs should be given a fixed component, and then another component can be transaction-based or variable component. But most of the banks are still continuing with the transaction-based, like a fixed component is either absent or very minimal. Some of the banks are giving fixed component, and we are there are different meetings which are happening with the banks, and because sustainability is the major issue, and as the BC network is expanding and within the same geography, more and more number of BCs are operating, plus other agents like for credit services, etc. So the earning avenues for a BC is getting reduced. So fixed component is must, and I think SBI is already giving a small component as fixed. And number of women BC is around 20% currently. So the target is to have around 30%. BC the initial target, and the number is increasing. From 10% we have gone to 20%. And even Ministry of Rural Development is training the SHG members, women, for carrying out these financial transactions. And wherever there is a scope, banks are deploying the trained SHG members as their business correspondents.
Lovely. Sir, you wanted to add? Yeah. Nahi kaam kar raha.
So why more and more, CSP points are transactional is everything depends on what the customer wants. Basically, I cannot make the customer come to CSP point and do much more than transactions. In fact, there are areas in our country or geographically more and more CSP points in the northern and northern east. There is a reason for that, because the need for transactional nature is much more in the eastern part of this country, and that is why almost 50-55% of the total CSP network in this part. Because it all depends on the need of the customer. I cannot just sell asset points at a CSP point where there is no demand. Even for, this may be very interesting to you, is that for making CSPs more viable, the passbook printing was added. For the reason I will tell you, the people used to transact at our CSP points and then come to bank for passbook printing. Because that's why I said banking is a business of trust. They would come to bank for passbook printing, saying that वहाँ तो कर लिया लेकिन आप passbook print करके बताओ कि मेरे खाते में पैसा आया नहीं. So we gave passbook printing to the CSP points. That also made them viable and built a trust in the customers. So it's all about, I mean, what the customer wants, no matter what we want to do. As
The
simple as
passbook
that.
is such an emotional
Secondly,
thing.
One more thing which even the Canara Bank GM said is that data privacy, security, and governance are the key concerns for anyone, right from the government to regulators to DFS to all the banks also. So it's very, very necessary that whatever we do, I mean, the compliance is the first thing. I mean, you try one day without compliance, you can have it. So therefore, there are certain restrictions or regulations which we'll have to follow even at CSP points.
Sure, and they will also evolve, as you said. I do want to ask you, Nidhi, particularly because we talked about percentage of women. What do you think are the handicap? I mean, you can answer to anything else, but I do want you to touch that as well. We do have 10 minutes more for questions, so we will come back to you.
So I think the major handicap in having women as agency bankers is the mindset, and that's going to take a while to change. So there's no regulation change. There is no regulatory requirement that can drive that. It is the mindset of the workforce that is there. That they might not be competent, or they might not be able to spend that kind of time because, of the life cycle of a woman, that, she might be in the way of family, she'll have children, she'll have to look after the children. I see that in my own organization. We are about 1,600 employees, and the percentage of women is about 12% at the field level. So essentially, it is the mindset. I drive that organization, but women are required to travel large distance. They have to be in the rural hinterland. They've got to collect cash. They have to bring cash back to the branch system. So all that is a challenge, but it is slowly changing, because what we are seeing is once women come and join that workforce of agency, the kind of trust, what Shantanu said, that they are much better at building trust. They're also much better at hand-holding a customer. They're also able to influence the customer to do beyond transactional banking. So the importance of women in that workforce, I don't think there is anything that can be taken away from that. But yes, it's a collective effort to bring more and more of them there.
I think maybe Dr. Kale, you should catch up later, because I think last month we were having a discussion on the same stage about this particular issue and how to design your work processes in a way that you can have more inclusive workplace. So a lot of really interesting things coming up from the audience as well as from the panel. And I hope at the end of it, we will all move towards a better system. Any more questions, please get the mic across to...
Yeah, hi. I think my question is also related to women agents. I am Ajit Agarwal from Women's World Banking. And as we all know that 56% are women Jan Dhan accounts, which are approximately 25-26 crore accounts. And like Sir said, we have moved needle substantially from 10% to 20% from a women agent point of view. And since SBI is leading the way in terms of number of accounts and number of agents, perhaps, and if SBI does something, other banks also kind of follow that. And this is my request from SBI's side, that if they can come up with some kind of a solution of coming up with how can we recruit more women agents on the field, in terms of how can we embed certain criteria in the corporate BC's contract, or some of those things, which says that you have to have at least 3 women BCs out of 10 women BCs, monthly or yearly, whatever it is. That will then help us track in a proper manner. Otherwise, what is happening is we are going very random in terms of when do we achieve that 30%? Do we achieve it next year, next to next year, in 5 years? So my only request to the banks is if they can think of a mechanism, a proper mechanism to reach that particular point and even go beyond that. So that's the only request. Thank you.
शांतनु जी, सब आपके ऊपर है. आप करेंगे, सब करेंगे. वो हाँ, बताइए.
This also shows the trust, perhaps.
हाँ?
Trust.
Yeah, कैसे करेंगे?
Thank you for this question. One thing which I want to tell you is that we cannot have CSPs directly. We will always go through BC and have CSP, because it's an agency principal arrangement between bank and the BC. and again from BC to CSP. Now, let me tell you, even within our bank, maybe 2 decades back, the women workforce was less than 10%. Today in SBI, we have got 40% women working.
Oh, wow.
That-
You're
that-
bucking the trend
Yes, yes.
for the country.
Yeah, almost touching 40%. We have got women workforce. So when the bank itself has got 40% women workforce, do you think that will not go for women CSP? I mean that is how we are progressing. But as Nidhi said, there are certain challenges of the rural area, and we have to take it into stride that as we are evolving, we will of course promote the more and more women CSP points, but pushing it very hard may be difficult. Over a period of time, just as the workforce in SBI evolved from 10% to 40% is going to happen. Now, you just imagine the SHG ecosystem. The SHG ecosystem of public sector banks itself is around maybe roughly 1.8 trillion. That's the SHG ecosystem of the PSBs. Including other players, it may be more than 2 trillion. Now, all this SHG ecosystem is full of women only. I've got 1 crore women members in State Bank itself. So all across we are actually going for a gender equality. There is no question about it. The world is moving. So don't worry, we will definitely take this.
So does anybody have...
Let me add one point
specific
here.
suggestions.
I think let me give you a good news. Actually, SBI does a fantastic job here. See, let's not make a mistake by looking at these numbers on the face of them. See, SBI has this concept called sub-kiosk operator, sub-KO, okay? And by default, sub-KO is the family member and usually the spouse, okay? Because they share. These are household enterprises and usually run in the front room of a house. These outlets are usually in villages. They don't set up a new outlet. They basically convert their front room into a BC outlet. And typically in the daytime, it is the female of the house who is actually running the outlet. Although the outlet may not be in her name, she can be registered as a sub-KO. And SBI insists that every outlet should have a sub-KO. And in our experience, majority of that sub-KOs are in a woman's name. So I think we should count that also as a part of the agent network. Your numbers will go up. Point number 1. Point number 2, make no mistake, in terms of utilization of bank accounts, if we divide this 40 crore, 50 crores Jandan accounts into certain strata, rural, urban, if at all other possibilities are not there because income distribution may not be easy, you will know that majority of the rural accounts are actually used by women because you have 10 crore women SHG members and 6 crore JLG members. Everybody gets a loan. And everybody gets something on their bank account. Of course, SHG is a bit of a group mechanism and rest of it happens outside of the banking system. But if you consider that as also a financial transaction, it's a formal transaction. Actually, almost, if there is an overlap, almost 10-12 crores of women are using these bank accounts for their financial services. But in the larger count, it may look like 20 to 25% of the overall Jandan accounts. But if we go a bit down, and I don't know if there is a study like that, if you look at the bottom strata, I think women are using more than men because they are the one who are getting loans. Men are not getting loans in rural areas in that strata. No MFI gives loan to men, no SHG gives loan to men. So in my opinion, there is utilization. I don't know whether we should downplay that. Yes, we can do better, but I think we are not counting some of these things effectively. All SHG loans are not counted. They are now counted as one group loan, but actually there are 10 members. So in some sense, I think we are also getting into larger statistics, but we need to get deeper and understand what is happening. And I think women inclusion is being taken up as a very big agenda at all levels.
So Shashi, in fact, there's something for you, Dr. Prashant, there, that gender desegregated data, it's one of the things that we talk about in Reserve Bank Innovation Hub a lot, that gender desegregated data is actually not available. So it's Shashi's word and his word and your word that we will keep talking about. But if we could have the data, then it would be...
In fact, the BC level transaction data we are not having. The individual banks are having the number of transactions, but what is the amount, what is the average size, who is doing the transaction, and where they are doing the transaction. This kind of data is not available. In fact, we are working on that with the help of NABARD and coming up with a BC registry, where we are planning to capture this transaction-based data, not individual transaction-based, but transaction like anonymous transaction data. Maybe with the help of that, we should be able to come up with this kind of numbers and this kind of data, like who is using, where the service is being used more, how many Jan Dhan accounts are using. So that data is lacking as of now, but maybe very soon
Yes.
we should be having that.
Yes, sir. In fact, that will be extremely helpful as well. Can I just take one question, because we are towards the end, and then I'm going to go to the wish list and wrap up. One question.
Hi, good morning to everyone. My name is Pradeep, and I work very closely with NRLM. We all know that SHG is currently having an outstanding amount of around 2 lakh crore, which they are handling mostly in cash. So now, because BC agents are working in the villages, they are able to provide services to individual members, definitely, but not to the SHG groups. SHG groups, they can deposit money in a BC agent, but they cannot withdraw, or they cannot transfer money to each other or to individual or to within their SHG network. Even SHG is also having their higher order federations, like SHG is repaying money to VO to CLF. These transactions are also not happening, but I think that's a very large amount, which is circulating mostly in cash, or either by visiting bank branches, which is located at a very distant. And the problem also escalates when there is no same BC agent in which the SHG have the same bank account. So if they do not match, then they cannot transact. I think it is because of offers transaction is not available. So how soon we would be able to make this facility available across all BC agents? If this is available, I think possibly that will add more revenue to BC agents as well. So how soon we can do that?
We are aware of the challenges being faced by the SHGs. It is mainly because of the double signatures. Like if it's a single person operated account, these are being serviced by the BC agents. But if it is multiple double signature accounts or those kind of accounts, then the BC agents are not able to service that for.
Thing is there that can be tried. I mean, some banks have already implemented dual authentication for SHG bank accounts, and it's kind of middle. It's not fully successful, but being tried. But one thought I have to your point about the whole cash moving around and not recorded. If we can, since you come from NRLM, if one can make it mandatory that all the SHG transactions are routed through bank accounts of individual members, because most of the members have bank accounts today, and there is a lot of cash transaction happens within the group. Instead of that cash transaction, only recording happens, but actual transaction happens through a bank system. UPI is a great enabler for that. Every transaction is recorded. Now, individual members also start creating their own trails, and then they can become credit worthy because there is no record of their borrowing otherwise. So we don't have to digitize the whole SHG system. If you can actually use UPI as a process of money transfer from the group to the member through dual authentication, and members receiving money in their bank accounts rather than cash, in my opinion, can solve to a large extent. And then, rest of it can be, a lot of other digitization can happen. And that can solve a lot of cash-related challenges also. I don't know whether it's being tried anywhere, but that's an area one can look at.
Yeah, and that's the tech issue, right?
Yeah.
On
No, it's not a tech
authorization.
issue. It is UPI is already an existing tech.
Authorization, who transfers. But
Yeah.
we won't be problem solving here. What I want to do now is to close this session. It's been extremely fruitful discussion, and I hope that we have something to take away. So I want everyone to summarize with one suggestion for the future that will drive this ecosystem to become what we want it to become. So you want to start, sir?
That's not the suggestion. We already started, as Dr. Goel said, distribution of asset product.
Distribution of asset products?
Yeah, we already started.
Yeah.
That's
but
the
to grow
wishes.
it?
Huh?
You're saying to grow that, to focus and grow?
Yeah, to grow that.
Okay.
I mean, they can be our business associate, as Nidhi is doing.
Okay.
We now have certain BCs as our business associate. So they will also be doing liability, they will also be doing asset. But the micro assets, not the very big. So that's how the ecosystem grows.
Perfect. Yours?
My wish list would be, as Shantanu said, that to do more asset disbursement through the BCs. So make that ecosystem viable, make it sustainable, make it so that more and more people can get into this BC channel and be a part of this industry. Already the BC industry, the asset BC is almost 90,000 crore. So it's meaningful, it's a sizable population, but very less is spoken about it, very less regulatory, like as the regulator standpoint, this is not considered as a separate segment. So we don't talk about the rights of the BC, we don't talk about the viability of this asset BC, as we say. So, I mean, if some work is done there, I think we can make leaps and bounds in financial inclusion in bridging the credit gap at the rural area.
Perfect. Shashi.
I think we need to move a step ahead of assisted banking. Now we have this concept of assisted, and we think that's going to stay. In my opinion, a lot of customers will graduate to self-service, and some effort has to be made to help create the right interfaces so that most of the transactional business should go away from assistance. That means cash should disappear, and people should be able to transact very seamlessly. And the agent networks and assisted ecosystem should move to the next level. Providing more quality and complexity of services have to be brought in as an advisory or a service provider kind of a model rather than a transaction facilitation model.
Yeah.
I think the BC network should graduate from transactions to service delivery. Transaction should move to self-service, and that's how I think cash should disappear eventually. So that's my aspiration.
No, that's a great summary. And sir, I also get to say my wish list because, because I also come from the sector. And I do think that exactly what you said, as we become more digital, as UPI takes over, machines should do what machines do well. Humans should do what humans should do well. Our effort for the last 30 years in financial services has been to make humans like machines because we want to standardize, we want to templatize, because trust can only be created through that. But I think we need to move away and find newer mechanisms to build that trust, to reduce fraud, and to have a cleaner, better ecosystem. And one specific request I have is on gender desegregated data. Because when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about the service delivery to this segment, then the channel really matters a lot, and greater participation of women will really help, but that can only happen when we have better data. I want your closing remarks, and then I can say bye.
Just summing up, like expectations are almost on the same lines. It is like a sustainable BC agent, more empowered to deliver a wide range of services, trusted by the banks also, and like trusted and trained, and if possible with some kind of more regulatory leeways and regulatory relaxation so that he is enabled to meet the credit requirements and other financial requirements of the rural people.
That's a great summary. I don't know how you did it, but I should have recorded it. It was fantastic. Thank you so much, and it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for all of you to be so alive to this discussion, and best wishes to everyone.
A big thank you to Shinjini. We deeply appreciate you taking out the time and for moderating this session. And once again, a big thanks to all the esteemed panelists. May I request you to please kindly collect a token. May I request the team to kindly present a small token. This is a token. Small token of our appreciation. We thank all the esteemed panelists. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick tea break now. We would request you to come back. It's exactly 11:10 by my watch, so I think we'll take a 15-minute break and reassemble here at 11:25. But before we take a break, let me remind you that we have introduced a web app. You can scan the QR code and access the schedule, network with other delegates, and also fill and submit the feedback form. We would love to hear from you. Please do scan the QR code on your badge also. That is also the QR code, the same QR code which applies for the web app, or you can scan the one which is being shown on the screen. So please do take some time to fill out the feedback forms and submit it on the web app. We would love to hear from you. Thank you and see you after the break.